Before we talk about Hera, the queen, the goddess, the judge, the protector, the master of side-eye, so powerful it could turn a demigod into a statue, let me ask you a simple question. Have you ever met someone who didn't even need to say a word to make their presence known? Someone who could enter a room and instantly make everyone sit a little straighter, fix their posture, reevaluate their life choices, and perhaps even consider apologizing for something they didn't do. That, ladies and gentlemen, is Hera. Hera is not merely a goddess. She is the goddess, the one whose name echoes across myths like a firm but elegantly delivered reminder that you better behave. She is the goddess of marriage, women, queenship, family, childbirth, and legend says, a level of divine patience that no mortal partner in history has ever successfully matched. But before she became the regal queen of Olympus, before she sat on a golden throne with a peacock by her side and lightning crackling somewhere in the background courtesy of her husband, before poets sang her praise and mortals feared her wrath, she was simply Hera, a spark of divinity, a child of Titans, a goddess destined for greatness and destined for drama. Because, honestly, if the Greek gods didn't have drama, there wouldn't be a mythology. You see, Hera's story is not a simple one. It is the story of a goddess who enforced order in a world built on chaos. The story of a queen who demanded respect in a family where even the furniture occasionally came to life and caused problems. The story of a woman who held Olympus together with equal parts grace and glare. And yet, she is also the goddess who was deeply misunderstood. Many call her jealous, many call her harsh, but nobody ever stops to ask, how would you feel if you were married to Zeus? Exactly. Now we're on the same page. So tonight, or today, or whatever cosmic time it is, where you are drifting off gently right now, we will slow walk very slowly through Hera's entire life, from her cosmic birth to her celestial throne, from her symbolic animals to her legendary myths, from her fiercest grudges to her softest moments. This is not just a history, this is not just a mythology. This is a journey through the life of a goddess who shaped Olympus itself. A story told gently, softly, calmly, as if Hera herself were watching over you, adjusting her crown and whispering, relax. I've been doing this for thousands of years, so take a breath, get comfortable, let your mind drift like a cloud floating over Mount Olympus, because we are about to begin the long, dreamy, humorous, and slightly dramatic story of Hera, queen of the gods, protector of marriage, and the most powerful bedtime storyteller you'll meet tonight. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you close your eyes for a moment and imagine the universe before gods, before heroes, before prophecies, before thunderbolts flying around like overly dramatic fireworks, you will find yourself drifting into the time before Hera was even born. It was a quiet time, a slow time, a time when existence itself was still figuring out how to exist. Things happened gently back then, almost politely. In that vast silence lived Gaia, the earth, and Uranus, the sky, together. They brought forth the Titans, giant beings of unimaginable strength, power, and extremely complicated family relationships. Among these Titans were Cronus and Rhea. Cronus was powerful, Rhea was wise, and together they would become parents to an entire new generation of gods, the Olympians. But before we reach Hera's actual birth, you must understand this family had a tradition, a very unusual tradition. Cronus, due to a prophecy predicting that one of his children would overthrow him, decided to take protective parenting to a completely new digestive level. Whenever Rhea gave birth, Cronus would simply seat the child whole, immediately. No seasoning, just straight from delivery room to digestive room. And now, with that horrifying bit of culinary mythology explained, we can finally talk about Hera's birth. Rhea, tired, discouraged, and possibly reconsidering her entire relationship at this point, was pregnant once again. She carried inside her a divine spark, beautiful, powerful, serene. And when Hera was born, the world felt her presence. Her birth was radiant, gentle, majestic. A soft, golden glow spread across the ancient world, as if the universe itself whispered, "A goddess has arrived." Hera came into the world, wrapped in cosmic beauty, a divine child destined not just to exist, but to reign. But poor Rhea had no time to admire her newborn daughter, no time to hold her close, no time to whisper lullabies or goddess-sized hopes, because Cronus was coming. And Cronus did what Cronus did best. He opened his jaw wide enough to terrify any dentist and swallowed Hera in one single gulp. Gulp, just like that. A future queen taken away before her story even began. And now begins the part of the tale people rarely imagine. Hera's earliest years were spent inside her father's stomach, inside that uncomfortable cosmic chamber where time moved strangely and space made no sense. Grew the Olympian children: Hestia, quietly patient Demeter, thoughtful and warm Hades, brooding long before it was fashionable Poseidon, swirling with restless power, and now Hera, the radiant one, glowing even in the darkness. Imagine that strange family reunion. No sunlight, no stars, just siblings floating around inside Cronus, like spiritual roommates in a very awkward, shared apartment. But here is the miracle. Even in that strange prison, Hera began to develop the qualities that would one day make her queen. She learned patience, because being swallowed as a baby really gives you no other choice. She learned calm, because panicking inside a tightened stomach accomplishes nothing except emotional cardio. She learned strength, because even the softest goddess must remain firm when the world around her is chaos. And she learned presence, divine presence, a quiet, glowing aura that said, "I am Hera. Even in darkness, I shine." Years passed, slowly, silently, in that strange, stomach-shadowed world. But Hera's story was not meant to end there. Another child would soon be born who would change everything. And that child was Zeus. Before Hera could rise to greatness, before she became the queen of Olympus, she had to survive something truly bizarre. Her father's eating habits. Cronus, the Titan king, was powerful, wise sometimes, but when it came to parenting, he made exactly one decision. If I swallow my children, they can't overthrow me. Not the best plan. Not even in the top 10,000 best plans. So, as soon as each baby was born, Hestia, gulp, Demeter, gulp, Hera, gulp, Hades, gulp, Poseidon, gulp, 5 children, 5 quick snacks, and inside Cronus's stomach, a strange, dark, timeless chamber. The Olympian children floated together like confused roommates in a very unpleasant Airbnb. Hera was there, glowing softly, patient, calm, even though she was literally living inside her father. Meanwhile, their mother Rhea had finally had enough. When her 6th child was born, she hid him far away in a sacred cave. This child was Zeus, and to keep Cronus fooled, she handed him a rock wrapped in a baby blanket. Cronus swallowed it without question. Years later, grown and powerful, Zeus returned home. With the help of a magical potion, he forced Cronus to cough up all the siblings he had swallowed, and in a very dramatic series of cosmic burps, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon were finally free. For the first time, Hera stood beside her real family, saw the world outside, breathed fresh air, and met Zeus the brother who had saved them all. Their stories were now intertwined, and Hera's true journey was finally beginning. When Hera was freed from Cronus's stomach, finally stepping into real sunlight for the first time, the world must have felt impossibly bright. Fresh air, open sky, no stomach walls, truly a luxury. She emerged, calm, steady, and elegant, the only Olympian who looked like she practiced her entrance beforehand. Even on day one, Hera carried herself like a goddess who knew she was meant for something greater. Before Olympus existed, the gods wandered across the early earth. Everything was new, fresh, untouched. Hera walked through blooming meadows, where flowers opened just a little wider when she passed. She dipped her hands in rivers, still learning how to flow. She watched the first birds, testing their voices, some impressive, some questionable. The world responded to Hera with a quiet respect. Even the wind seemed to calm down around her, like it didn't want to mess up her hair. Each of Hera's siblings had chaotic, powerful domains. Poseidon with his storms, Hades with shadows, Demeter with growing things. Hera's power was different. She brought order. Where Hera stood, things aligned, balanced, made sense. Her presence was like the universe, taking a deep breath and saying, "Ah, finally, someone responsible." She was not loud, not wild, not dramatic. Her strength was quiet, but unmistakable. During her early years, Hera spent much time with the Charites, the Graces, three gentle goddesses of beauty and harmony. They loved her immediately. She wasn't just beautiful. She was composed, balanced, soft, yet strong. Together they shaped the qualities that would one day define Hera: dignity, elegance, nurturing warmth, quiet power. She was becoming a goddess the world could trust, even before Olympus, even before the throne, even before Zeus approached her. Hera already felt like a queen, a goddess born to guide, to balance, to protect. And somewhere in the distance, Zeus was watching, noticing her strength, noticing her calm, noticing the goddess who would change his life forever. Hera had spent her early life wandering the young world, learning, watching, growing, and quietly becoming the goddess everyone naturally listened to, even when she wasn't talking. Meanwhile, somewhere across the mountains and clouds, another young god was growing stronger. Zeus, loud, energetic, full of thunder even before he actually invented thunder. He had heard stories of his siblings, the ones he saved but never truly met. And among the whispered names, one stood out to him: Hera, the calm one, the composed one. The goddess whose presence could settle storms without lifting a finger. One day, after the Olympian siblings reunited and began exploring their powers, Zeus finally saw Hera face to face, and just like that, the future of Olympus shifted. The first meeting. Zeus did not approach gently. He approached like Zeus approaches everything, with confidence, big energy, and the charm of someone who absolutely knows they are good-looking. Hera was sitting near a quiet river, surrounded by flowers gently bending toward her. She wasn't trying to make nature adore her, it just did. When Zeus arrived, lightning crackled in the distance. Totally unnecessary, but very on brand for him. Hera looked up calmly, as if meeting a lightning-powered stranger was just another Tuesday. Zeus tried to impress her. Naturally, he talked about storms, about power, about how he freed everyone from Cronus. At one point, he may have flexed just a little. Hera listened politely, with the peaceful expression of someone thinking, "He seems dramatic." What Zeus saw in Hera, most goddesses dazzled Zeus with beauty, power, charm. But Hera was different. She didn't try to impress him. She didn't react to his theatrics. She didn't even flinch when thunder rumbled behind him, which slightly offended him because he had timed that thunder very carefully. Instead, she looked at him with calm eyes that seemed to say, "If you want my attention, you'll have to earn it." And Zeus, surprisingly, liked that. More than liked it. He was fascinated. Here was a goddess who was not afraid of him, not intimidated by him, not dazzled by him. Hera treated him like an equal, and that was new. What Hera saw in Zeus, Hera didn't fall for Zeus immediately. She noticed his charm, yes, his confidence, yes, but she also saw the childlike excitement behind his thunder, the softness he hid under the lightning, the desire not just for power, but for connection. And slowly, she realized something. Zeus wasn't just a storm. He was a storm searching for a place to rest, and she was the calm after the storm, the spark of destiny. Their first conversation lasted hours, not loud, not intense, just flowing. For the first time, Zeus felt understood. For the first time, Hera felt seen. Two gods, one wild, one steady, met beside a quiet river, and the universe quietly whispered, "These two are going to change everything." But the road to love, to marriage, to ruling Olympus together would not be easy. After their first meeting by the river, Hera and Zeus spent more time together. Zeus, full of charm and thunder, tried impressing her daily. Hera, calm, patient, and subtly unamused, watched him with that quiet dignity only a goddess could hold. It wasn't love at first sight, at least not the dramatic, instant, movie-style kind. It was more like a slow, inevitable pull. Two powerful beings, recognizing that together they could balance the chaos of Olympus. Zeus decided it was time to propose, time to ask Hera to be his queen. Now, proposing to a goddess is not like proposing to a mortal. You can't just kneel and hold out a ring, though Zeus may have considered a golden lightning bolt. You have to impress her with grandeur, power, and maybe a little magic. He summoned clouds, stars, and gentle winds. He created a garden of divine beauty, with rivers flowing backward and flowers singing soft songs. He offered Hera gifts, golden thrones, jewels from the depths of the oceans, and even peacocks which Hera would eventually claim as her sacred animal. Hera watched quietly. Zeus might have thought she would swoon. She did not. Instead, she smiled slightly, a smile that said, "You may have power, Zeus, but I am the queen of patience." The wedding was the most magnificent event Olympus had ever seen. Every god, goddess, nymph, and divine creature attended. Mountains trembled in excitement. Rivers sparkled. Birds sang in harmony. Hera wore a gown woven from sunlight and moonlight, calm and elegant as ever. Zeus looked like he had just emerged from a storm that he personally choreographed. The ceremony was peaceful, but the energy between them was intense. It was clear to everyone, Hera was not just marrying Zeus. She was agreeing to rule beside him, to guide him, to balance him, and sometimes to keep him in line. And Zeus knew this was a partnership, a powerful, cosmic partnership. With that, Hera became queen of Olympus, and Zeus her king. Together, they would shape the destiny of gods and mortals alike. Together, they would face adventures, challenges, rivalries, and even a few family arguments, because let's be honest, this is Greek mythology. But for now, the gods rejoiced. The universe seemed calmer, and Hera, as always, remained composed, ready for whatever chaos the world or her husband might throw at her next. And that calm, patient strength would define her role for the centuries to come. After the grand wedding, Hera's role as Queen of Olympus officially began. She was no longer just a goddess wandering the earth or sitting beside Zeus admiring rivers. She was the queen, a title that carried power, responsibility, and, well, occasional headaches, because life with Zeus was never completely calm. Being Queen of Olympus was no small task. Hera had to manage the daily chaos of the other gods, Poseidon with his storms, Hades with his shadows, and Hermes with his endless pranks. Family disputes that could start over nothing and escalate into earthquakes. The ever-complicated marital life with Zeus, who had, say, a lively approach to relationships. But Hera did it all gracefully, with calm authority, a sharp mind, and occasional subtle side-eyes. She reminded the gods that order mattered. If Olympus was to function, it was Hera's presence that held it together. While Zeus ruled with strength, thunder, and occasional flair, Hera ruled with wisdom, patience, and influence. She guided decisions, mediated arguments, and ensured that even the most impulsive god paused to think, if only for a moment. Her power was quiet but effective. A whisper of hers could shift a plan, adjust a storm, or calm a furious sibling. Zeus might have had the lightning bolts, but Hera had the balance, arguably the more important part of ruling Olympus. All the gods and goddesses respected her. Some feared her, if we're honest. Her presence carried the kind of authority that made even Poseidon think twice before raising a storm unnecessarily. Even Zeus, with all his energy and charm, knew her influence could not be ignored. Hera had become the anchor of Olympus, the goddess who reminded everyone that order, dignity, and patience were as powerful as any weapon. Even in quiet moments, Hera's role was evident. She walked through Olympus with poise, her peacocks trailing behind her, her gaze serene but commanding. She had achieved what no one else had. She became a queen not just by marriage, but by presence. Hera, the goddess who once floated in darkness, had risen to a throne. She was powerful, respected, and essential to the life of Olympus. And somewhere, Zeus admired her not just as a wife, but as a partner, an equal, and the heart of their divine kingdom. Every great goddess has symbols, animals that reflect her power, personality, and influence. For Hera, these symbols were as regal, elegant, and commanding as she was. Perhaps the most famous symbol of Hera is the peacock. Those shimmering feathers, each with a watchful eye, represent vigilance, beauty, royalty, and a tiny hint of "I see what you're doing, Zeus." Legend says the peacock's feathers carry the 100 eyes of Argus, the giant Hera once assigned to watch over someone, or perhaps everyone. So whenever a peacock spreads its tail, it is a subtle reminder Hera is always watching, which is very helpful for keeping Olympus in order. Hera was also associated with the cow, symbolizing fertility, motherhood, patience, a quiet, steady strength. The cow reminds us that Hera's power is not only in commanding attention, but in guiding growth and protecting life. Even a queen of gods can be gentle, calm, and nurturing, just like a cow grazing peacefully in a field, until you upset her. Then beware. Hera's crown was no ordinary ornament. It symbolized her royalty and the right to rule Olympus. Her scepter, often depicted as a staff of power, represented justice, balance, and governance. These symbols made her instantly recognizable. When Hera entered a room or Mount Olympus itself, her authority was clear. Even the loudest gods fell silent for a moment. Hera was also connected with flowers, particularly lilies, which represent purity, fertility, and elegance. Her imagery often shows her in flowing robes, seated on a throne, accompanied by her peacocks, with lilies at her feet, a queen in full glory, calm yet commanding, gentle yet fierce. All of these symbols, peacock, cow, crown, scepter, lily, combines to tell us who Hera is: regal and commanding, nurturing and protective, always vigilant, a force of order in a chaotic world. And just like her symbols, Hera herself is unforgettable. A presence that defines Olympus and leaves a lasting impression wherever she goes. Hera was not only queen of Olympus by marriage, she was a goddess of immense power in her own right, with abilities that commanded respect from gods and mortals alike. Hera's most important role was as the protector of marriage and family. She oversaw loyalty between couples, fidelity and faithfulness, the sanctity of family life. Whenever someone betrayed their spouse or angered a family member, Hera's influence could subtly or not so subtly intervene. Her role wasn't just to punish, it was to maintain balance and order within relationships, divine or mortal. Hera had a quiet but undeniable power to bring structure to chaos. She could calm disputes among gods, guide mortals through difficult situations, and ensure that Olympus functioned smoothly. Where Zeus brought storms and thunder, Hera brought strategy and diplomacy. Where Zeus was impulsive, Hera was calculated. Together, they ruled not just by power, but by balance. Hera could influence both gods and mortals. She could inspire respect or fear in those who disobeyed. She could grant favor to mortals she approved of, or withdraw protection from those she disapproved of. And yes, she could make life extremely difficult for those who crossed her path, especially if Zeus had been careless. Her powers were subtle but effective. Olympus worked better with her presence, even if some gods grumbled at her strictness. Hera also watched over women and childbirth. In myths, she helped women during labor and ensured their families remained protected. This role made her revered among mortals, who prayed to Hera for safe childbirth and strong family bonds. Hera's powers came with personality. She could be nurturing and just, but also jealous and vengeful. Her intensity wasn't weakness. It was passion directed toward order. She demanded respect because she understood that power without authority could lead to chaos. In essence, Hera's divine powers were not just flashy. They were practical, wise, and essential. She was the goddess who ensured Olympus ran like clockwork, thrones aligned, families intact, and even Zeus occasionally thinking twice before acting impulsively. And that, dear listener, is why Hera is remembered not only as a queen, but as the heart and balance of Olympus itself. Hera, now firmly established as Queen of Olympus, had many responsibilities. She oversaw marriages, guided mortals, and kept the gods in check. But even queens encounter surprises, and Hera's next challenge came in the form of a child, Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship. According to some myths, Hera decided to have a child without Zeus. Yes, just Hera, her will, and divine magic. She wanted a son who would carry her own strength and wisdom, a child of her power alone. And so, through her divine ability, Hephaestus was born. But there was a problem. The child was different. Hephaestus was not as physically perfect as other gods. He was born lame, with a physical imperfection that made him appear weak in the eyes of some on Olympus. Hera loved her son deeply, as mothers do, but Olympus was less kind. Some gods mocked Hephaestus, teasing his limp. Some whispered that he was less than divine. Even Hera herself struggled with her feelings, torn between pride in her son and the disappointment Olympus expressed. In a moment of anger or sorrow, or perhaps both, Hera threw Hephaestus from Olympus. He fell to the earth, landing in the sea, where he was cared for by sea nymphs. Being cast away did not weaken Hephaestus. It forged him. He became a master craftsman, creating magnificent weapons and tools for gods and heroes alike. Ironically, the god rejected by his mother's peers became indispensable to the very Olympus that scorned him. Zeus and Hera both depended on his skills eventually. Hera, of course, had complicated feelings: love, pride, regret, and occasional annoyance at Hephaestus' clever tricks. The story of Hephaestus's birth is more than a tale of family drama. It shows Hera's strength and imperfection. Even queens make mistakes. Even divine mothers act impulsively. It also shows that even when things seem unfair, destiny can turn misfortune into greatness. Hera's role as a mother and her connection to Hephaestus highlights her human-like complexity. She is regal, powerful, caring, but also capable of intense emotions that shape Olympus itself. And somewhere in the background, Zeus probably sighed, knowing that family life on Olympus would never be boring. Hera, queen of Olympus, was known for many things: calm authority, wisdom, elegance, and a presence that commanded respect. But there's another side of Hera that mortals and gods alike whispered about for centuries: her legendary jealousy. Yes, even a queen must have limits. Hera's jealousy often arose from Zeus' endless affairs. The king of gods was, let's say, not very loyal. He flirted with nymphs, mortals, and even other goddesses, often right under Hera's majestic nose. Hera, who valued marriage and fidelity above all, could not ignore these betrayals. It was not just personal, it was cosmic. Every affair was a disruption of order, a challenge to the sanctity of marriage, and, of course, a potential threat to her authority as queen. Hera's jealousy was not weakness. It was fierce, calculated, and sometimes terrifying. She didn't act impulsively all the time. She planned, she watched, she waited. Then she struck, often in ways that were subtle, clever, or ironic. Mortals and gods alike learned quickly: never cross Hera lightly. Some stories show Hera punishing mortals who caught Zeus' attention, like Io, the priestess whom Zeus loved, Heracles, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman, and countless others, from nymphs to kings. Her actions could be harsh, yes, but they reflected her role. She was defending marriage, family, and divine order. If her methods were extreme, Hera's jealousy also shows her human-like depth. She was more than a queen. She was a goddess with emotions, pride, and moral principles. Her wrath was a response to disruption, not mere pettiness. It was the enforcement of a cosmic law she held dear. And yet, she also loved, nurtured, and guided those who respected her authority. Her jealousy was balanced by care, protection, and dedication to Olympus. Hera's jealousy may have made her infamous in myths, but it also made her powerful and unforgettable. She is a goddess who embodies both authority and passion, both order and the fierce defense of her values. Her legends remind mortals and gods alike: to cross a queen is to challenge not just a woman, but a divine principle. Even a calm queen like Hera could not ignore chaos, especially when Zeus got involved. One of the most famous examples of her legendary jealousy is the story of Io, a mortal woman loved by Zeus. Zeus, as usual, had taken a fancy to a mortal. Io was beautiful, kind, and utterly human, perfect material for Zeus' attention. But Hera, ever vigilant, noticed the unusual sparks flying and decided to investigate. Zeus, trying to hide his affair again, transformed Io into a cow. Yes, a cow. A beautiful cow, but still a cow. Hera, suspicious as ever, quickly caught on. Her famous gaze fell upon Io, and she knew this was another test of her patience. Hera didn't act impulsively at first. She assigned Argus Panops, a giant with 100 eyes, to watch over Io. Io could not escape. Argus's eyes were always awake, always vigilant. Hera's strategy was brilliant in its patience. She didn't need to confront Zeus directly. She ensured that Io remained under constant supervision. Eventually, Zeus enlisted Hermes to free Io. Hermes lulled Argus to sleep and killed him, allowing Io to wander free, but her life would always be marked by Hera's influence. Hera, though fierce, was never cruel without reason. Her actions reflected her role as guardian of order and marriage. Every story of jealousy also showcased her intelligence, patience, and determination. The myth of Io teaches several things. Hera's vigilance is unmatched. Zeus' charm often comes with complications. Even a queen's wrath can be calculated, purposeful, and ultimately balanced by fairness. Io's story, though tragic for the mortal, highlights Hera's strength, influence, and unwavering sense of justice, qualities that would define her as the queen of Olympus forever. Hera's jealousy was famous across Olympus, especially when it came to Zeus and his endless distractions. One of the most notable stories involves Leto, a titaness who caught Zeus's eye. Leto became pregnant with twins Artemis, and Apollo and Hera immediately noticed. For Hera, this wasn't just about personal feelings. It was a matter of principle, marriage, order, and respect for Olympus. Hera declared that Leto could not give birth on any land that saw the sun. In other words, anywhere living, solid, sunlit, off-limits. Leto wandered the earth, desperate and exhausted. She couldn't find a safe place to deliver her children. Finally, Leto found Delos, a small, floating island in the sea. Since it was not anchored to the earth, it was technically allowed. She gave birth to her twins, there, under the watchful gaze of Hera's subtle but persistent attention. Hera's jealousy didn't stop the birth, but it made it difficult, showing just how far she would go to assert her authority. This story highlights several things about Hera: her protectiveness over her marriage and Zeus' fidelity, her ability to strategically impose obstacles without direct violence, her role as a goddess whose influence affects both gods and mortals, showing that even divine beings are accountable. Hera's struggle with Leto is not just about jealousy, it's about her commitment to order and principle, even when it puts her at odds with Zeus. Though Leto eventually gave birth, Hera's actions left a mark. It demonstrated that Hera, as queen of Olympus, wielded her power carefully, deliberately, and effectively. She was not just a goddess of anger, she was a goddess of balance, ensuring that her authority and principles were never ignored. Even the mightiest of gods had to respect her, and even the smallest mortal island could become the stage of divine lessons. Even the strongest gods and mortals could not escape Hera's watchful eyes, especially when they were connected to Zeus. One of the most famous examples of her legendary vigilance involves Heracles, the son of Zeus and a mortal woman. Heracles was born to Alcmene, a mortal woman, which immediately attracted Hera's attention. Hera's reaction? Well, imagine a queen noticing someone has sneaked into her throne room uninvited and then deciding to make life as difficult as possible. From the very beginning, Hera sought to challenge and test Heracles. She could not allow Zeus' son to rise easily. It went against her principles of order and her insistence that Olympus respected her authority. Even as a baby, Heracles could not escape Hera's wrath. She sent 2 serpents to his crib, hoping to end the child's life. But baby Heracles, already showing signs of extraordinary strength, strangled the snakes with his tiny hands. Hera's first attempt at stopping him had failed, and the stage was set for a lifelong struggle. Hera continued to challenge Heracles at every opportunity. She sent madness to strike him during adulthood, leading him to tragic actions. She tried to create obstacles that would make his legendary labors even more difficult. She tested his strength, patience, and cleverness repeatedly, ensuring that he would never have an easy path. Hera's actions were strict, sometimes harsh, but always purposeful. She wanted to maintain order, test the limits of mortals and demigods, and assert her authority as Queen of Olympus. Though Hera and Heracles were often at odds, her influence shaped him. Without her challenges, Heracles might never have become the strongest and wisest hero of Greece. Hera's jealousy, vigilance, and persistence, qualities that sometimes made her seem fearsome, ultimately contributed to the balance of power on Olympus and the growth of heroes. Hera's relationship with Heracles reminds us, even gods have rules and principles. Power and authority are not just about strength, they are about guidance, challenge, and balance. And sometimes, a queen's wrath can help create legends. Hera may have been feared, but she was also essential. Her challenges ensured that Olympus remained orderly, and that even the sons of Zeus learned respect and patience. Hera, Queen of Olympus, was not only a goddess of marriage and order, she was also a mother. Her children were powerful, divine, and sometimes complicated. Hera and Zeus had several children together, including Ares, the god of war, Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth, Hebe, the goddess of youth and cupbearer of Olympus, Hephaestus, the god of fire and craftsmanship, in some myths born only of Hera. Each child reflected a different aspect of Hera herself: strength and courage in Ares' care and protection in Eileithyia, vitality and service in Hebe, ingenuity and resilience in Hephaestus. Hera's influence shaped them, guiding their powers and personalities even as they pursued their own paths on Olympus. Being a mother on Olympus was not easy. Her children were strong, independent, and occasionally rebellious. But Hera's wisdom, authority, and patience allowed her to guide them without losing her regal composure. Even when Ares brought chaos through war, or Hephaestus was clever enough to defy her expectations, Hera remained calm and firm, a true queen and mother in one. Hera's children were more than divine beings. They were extensions of her power. She nurtured their abilities, taught them the importance of order and responsibility, and ensured that Olympus respected her family. Her guidance was strict but loving. She expected excellence and discipline, but she also provided care and protection, making her children not just powerful gods, but also a reflection of her own qualities, strength, wisdom, and dignity. Through her children, Hera's influence extended across Olympus and beyond. Their actions, powers, and roles in myths highlighted not only their individual greatness, but also Hera's enduring impact as a mother and queen. Her children carried forward her principles of order, loyalty, and strength, ensuring that Hera's legacy would live on through the generations of gods and mortals alike. Even a calm, wise goddess like Hera could not stay out of major events, especially when the honor of Olympus and her own pride were at stake. One of the biggest conflicts she influenced was the Trojan War, a legendary battle that would echo through myth forever. Hera's reasons were twofold. Personal rivalries. The war started with the judgment of Paris, when Paris, a mortal prince, chose Aphrodite as the fairest goddess over Hera and Athena. Hera was furious, not just for the insult, but for the principle, order, and respect among gods matters. Favoring the Greeks, Hera supported the Greeks during the war. She wanted to see justice done, ensuring that her chosen side had the guidance and strength of Olympus behind them. Hera did not fight like a mortal warrior swinging a sword. Her tools were influence, strategy, and cunning. She inspired the Greeks, giving them courage and wisdom. She sabotaged Trojan plans, creating delays or distractions. She worked alongside Athena, combining brains and strategy with divine authority. Hera's presence was subtle but powerful. Even gods on Olympus could see that when Hera intervened, the war shifted. The Trojan War was like a giant game of chess with mortals as pawns and gods as players. Hera excelled at this. She moved pieces carefully, watched outcomes, and occasionally nudged Zeus, though never too forcefully, because even the king needed reminders of order. Her actions demonstrated her patience, intelligence, and commitment to balance, even in the chaos of war. Hera's involvement in the Trojan War shows that she was more than a queen or a jealous wife. She was a strategist, a protector of principles, and a powerful force shaping the course of events. Through her guidance, influence, and vigilance, Hera helped maintain divine order and reminded both gods and mortals, even in chaos, authority and wisdom matter. And though mortals might only see the battles, the gods knew who truly influenced victory, and that was Hera, quietly, steadily, and always wisely. Hera was not only revered by the gods, mortals also worshipped her with great devotion. Temples, festivals, and rituals were dedicated to her, celebrating her power, authority, and role as guardian of marriage and family. Hera's temples were impressive and majestic, reflecting her status as queen of the gods. Heracles of Samos, one of the largest temples, known for its massive columns and grandeur. Heracles of Argos, famous for celebrating Hera as a protector of the city and its people. Heracles of Olympia, near the sanctuary of Zeus, showing her close divine connection as queen. These temples were not just buildings, they were symbols of her presence, places where mortals could feel her protection and power. Mortals celebrated Hera with festivals, the most famous being the Heracles, athletic and religious games held in her honor. These events often included offerings of food, wine, and flowers, prayers for marriage, fertility, and protection of family, chants and songs praising her wisdom, beauty, and vigilance. Hera's worshippers saw her as a guardian of society, ensuring that families and marriages were respected and harmonious. Her temples and rituals often included her sacred animals and symbols, peacocks, reminding mortals of her watchful eyes, cows, representing fertility and nurturing strength, lilies and flowers, emphasizing elegance, purity, and grace. These symbols helped worshippers connect with Hera's divine qualities and brought the queen closer to the mortal world. Through her temples, festivals, and sacred symbols, Hera's influence reached far beyond Olympus. Mortals respected her, not only as a goddess of marriage, but as a divine authority who could shape lives, guide families, and maintain order. Even centuries later, the ruins of her temples and stories of her festivals remind us of her grace, power, and timeless legacy. Hera, Queen of Olympus, was not just a goddess of marriage, family, and authority. She had a distinct personality that made her unforgettable to gods and mortals alike. Hera carried herself with poise and dignity. Whether walking among gods or standing in her temple, she exuded calm authority. Even Zeus, loud and impulsive, knew that Hera's words and presence demanded respect. Her composure made her a natural leader, able to guide Olympus with quiet confidence rather than chaotic force. Though regal, Hera was also deeply protective of her family, her children, and her marriage. She cared for mortals, ensuring marriages were honored and women were safe in childbirth. Her nurturing side balanced her authority, reminding everyone that even a queen could be compassionate and loving. Hera's jealousy is legendary, especially when it came to Zeus' affairs. But her jealousy was more than personal. It was a defense of order, respect, and principle. She could be fierce, strategic, and relentless. If anyone threatened her family, her marriage, or the sanctity of Olympus, Hera's wrath was not to be underestimated. Hera was intelligent and patient. She planned carefully, influenced outcomes subtly, and often worked behind the scenes. Her wisdom ensured that Olympus remained orderly even when chaos erupted among the gods. Hera was complex and multidimensional, calm yet fierce, nurturing yet demanding, patient yet watchful. Her traits made her both feared and admired, respected as a queen, and loved for her care and guidance. In essence, Hera is the perfect combination of elegance, authority, and emotional depth, a goddess whose personality shaped the very heart of Olympus. Hera's influence didn't stop at Olympus or in mortal worship. She also inspired artists, writers, and storytellers for centuries, becoming an icon of power, beauty, and authority. In paintings, sculptures, and mosaics, Hera is often depicted seated on a throne, regal and calm, wearing a crown, showing her royal status, accompanied by peacocks, her watchful and majestic symbols, sometimes with her children, reminding viewers of her role as a mother. Ancient artists captured her strength and elegance, portraying not just a goddess, but a queen whose presence demanded attention and respect. Hera appears in countless myths, epic poems, and plays. Homer's Iliad shows her as a strategic force in the Trojan War, guiding and influencing events. Greek tragedies and myths often highlight her jealousy, wisdom, and protective instincts. Poets and writers explored her complexity, showing her as a goddess of both compassion and vengeance. Through these stories, Hera's personality, values, and authority were passed down for generations. Hera, in art and literature, represents more than just her myths, authority, and leadership. She is always the queen, the guide, the decision maker. Balance of power. Calm, wise, and strategic. balancing Zeus' impulsiveness, complex humanity. Her emotions, jealousies, and love make her relatable, even as a divine being. Artists and writers didn't just depict Hera. They celebrated her, studied her, and ensured her presence would endure in culture for thousands of years. Whether carved in marble, painted on a vase, or described in an epic, Hera remains a symbol of authority, wisdom, and feminine power. Her image reminds us that a goddess's influence can transcend myths, inspiring generations through beauty, intellect, and personality. Hera is more than a character. She is a legend in art, literature, and imagination, a queen who will always reign. As we come to the end of Hera's story, it's clear that she is much more than just a goddess of jealousy or a wife of Zeus. Hera is strength, wisdom, patience, and authority personified. Her life and myths show us power and leadership. She ruled Olympus alongside Zeus, guiding gods and mortals alike. Vigilance and justice. She ensured order, defended marriages, and maintained divine balance. Love and protection. As a mother and protector of women, her nurturing side was just as important as her regal authority. Complexity and depth. Her jealousy, cunning, patience, and compassion make her one of the most fascinating figures in mythology. Hera's influence stretches beyond the myths themselves. Through temples, festivals, art, and literature, her presence shaped ancient culture and continues to inspire us today. Hera teaches us that strength can be calm, authority can be kind, and patience can be powerful. Even when faced with betrayal, challenges, or chaos, she remained composed and guided the world around her. Her story is a reminder that even the greatest queens face trials, yet they endure, lead, and leave a legacy that echoes through time. Now, as you drift off, imagine Hera walking among the stars, her peacocks trailing behind her, her crown gleaming softly, her presence calm yet commanding. Feel the quiet wisdom of the queen who watches over marriages, families, and the delicate balance of life itself. Rest peacefully, knowing that Hera's story reminds us that strength, patience, and love can endure forever. Good night, close your eyes, let the stars of Olympus guide your dreams, and sleep well, knowing the Queen of Olympus is watching gently over you.